World War I, also known as the Great War, was a global conflict that took place from 1914 to 1918. It involved many of the world's great powers, primarily dividing into two opposing alliances: the Allies, also known as the Entente Powers, and the Central Powers. The immediate cause of World War I was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary in June 1914 by a Serbian nationalist. The event triggered a series of diplomatic and military escalations among the major European powers, leading to the outbreak of war. The Central Powers consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and later joined by Bulgaria. The Allies included countries such as France, the United Kingdom, Russia, Italy after 1915, and the United States after 1917, among others. The war was fought on multiple fronts, including Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and the seas. It witnessed significant technological advancements in warfare, such as the use of machine guns, poison gas, tanks, aircraft, and submarines, which resulted in devastating casualties and trench warfare. The war resulted in enormous loss of life and tremendous human suffering. Millions of soldiers and civilians were killed, and many more were wounded or displaced. Battles such as the Somme, Verdun, and Gallipoli became notorious for their high casualties. The United States entered the war in 1917, which played a crucial role in tipping the balance in favor of the Allies. With the exhaustion of resources and morale, Germany and its allies eventually sought armistice negotiations. On November 11, 1918, an armistice was signed, effectively ending the fighting. The formal peace treaty, known as the Treaty of Versailles, was signed in 1919. It imposed severe penalties on Germany, including territorial losses, disarmament, and hefty reparations, which would contribute to future tensions and conflicts. World War I had far-reaching consequences that reshaped the world. It led to the collapse of several empires, including the Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, German, and Russian empires. The war also set the stage for the rise of new ideologies, such as communism and fascism, which would shape the 20th century. Additionally, the Treaty of Versailles and the unresolved issues it left behind would contribute to the outbreak of World War II. Certainly. Here are some additional key points about World War I. Trench warfare. Trenches played a significant role in World War I. Soldiers on both sides dug elaborate systems of trenches stretching across the Western Front, resulting in a stalemate where little territorial gain was made. Total war. World War I was characterized by the concept of total war, where nations mobilized their entire populations and resources towards the war effort. It involved not only soldiers but also civilians who contributed to the war through industrial production, propaganda, and economic measures. New weapons and technologies. World War I saw the introduction of new weapons and technologies that revolutionized warfare. These included machine guns, artillery, tanks, aircraft initially used for reconnaissance but later for combat, and chemical weapons such as poison gas. Eastern Front. While much focus is often placed on the Western Front, the war also involved the Eastern Front, where German and Austro-Hungarian forces faced off against Russian armies. The Eastern Front witnessed significant battles and territorial shifts, contributing to the overall outcome of the war. War at sea. Naval warfare played a crucial role during World War I. The British and German navies engaged in a naval arms race and clashed in several major battles, including the Battle of Jutland. The use of submarines, particularly by Germany, had a significant impact on maritime warfare. Impact on women and society. World War I brought significant changes to society, particularly for women. With many men serving in the military, women took on new roles in factories, offices, and other sectors, contributing to the workforce and advancing the cause of women's suffrage. Russian Revolution. The war had a profound impact on Russia, contributing to internal unrest and eventually leading to the Russian Revolution in 1917. The Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power and established the Soviet Union, becoming the world's first communist state. Redrawing of borders. The end of World War I resulted in the redrawing of borders and the creation of new nations. The disintegration of empires led to the formation of independent countries, such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, and the Baltic states, as well as the reconfiguration of territories in the Middle East. Casualties and losses. World War I was one of the deadliest conflicts in history. It is estimated that approximately 8.5 million soldiers were killed, and millions more were wounded or went missing. Civilian casualties were also significant, primarily due to the impact of war on infrastructure and civilian populations. Legacy and lessons learned. World War I had a profound impact on global politics, diplomacy, and the perception of war. It highlighted the devastating consequences of conflict and shaped the approach to international relations, eventually leading to the establishment of the League of Nations, a precursor to the United Nations. These are just a few additional aspects of World War I. The war was a complex and multifaceted event that continues to be studied and analyzed by historians and scholars. The Schlieffen Plan. At the beginning of the war, Germany implemented the Schlieffen Plan, a military strategy aimed at quickly defeating France in the west before turning its attention to Russia in the east. However, the plan failed to achieve its objectives and resulted in a prolonged war on multiple fronts. War of attrition. World War I turned into a war of attrition, with both sides attempting to wear down the enemy through continuous fighting and high casualty rates. This strategy led to immense human suffering and loss of life. Battle of the Somme. One of the most infamous battles of World War I was the Battle of the Somme, fought between July and November 1916. It was a joint British and French offensive against the Germans and resulted in heavy casualties on all sides. The battle is remembered for its staggering death toll, with over 1 million casualties. Gallipoli Campaign. The Gallipoli Campaign was a major military operation undertaken by the Allies in 1915, with the objective of capturing the Ottoman capital of Istanbul and establishing a sea route to Russia. The campaign, however, ended in failure, with heavy losses suffered by the Allied forces, primarily composed of troops from Australia and New Zealand. War in the Middle East. World War I had significant implications for the Middle East. The crumbling Ottoman Empire was weakened further by military defeats, and the Allies exploited these vulnerabilities. The British, in particular, launched offensives in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq and Palestine, ultimately leading to the dismantling of the Ottoman Empire and the subsequent redrawing of the region's boundaries. U-boat warfare. Germany employed unrestricted submarine warfare, using U-boats to attack merchant and passenger ships. This tactic aimed to cut off supplies to Britain and its allies. The sinking of the British passenger liner RMS Lusitania in 1915, resulting in the deaths of over 1,100 civilians, including Americans, contributed to the eventual entry of the United States into the war. Armistice and peace treaties. The armistice signed on November 11, 1918, ended the fighting on the Western Front. Negotiations for peace took place in 1919, culminating in the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. Besides Germany, separate peace treaties were signed with the other Central Powers. These treaties, particularly the Treaty of Versailles, imposed harsh conditions on Germany, including territorial losses and financial reparations, which sowed the seeds of resentment and would later be a contributing factor to World War II. Medical advances. World War I witnessed significant advancements in medical practices and techniques, driven by the scale and severity of injuries. Innovations in battlefield medicine, such as mobile X-ray units, the use of antiseptics, and the development of new surgical techniques, helped improve survival rates for wounded soldiers.
War propaganda. World War I saw the widespread use of propaganda by governments to shape public opinion, boost morale, and garner support for the war effort. Posters, newspapers, and other media were employed to rally populations and demonize the enemy. Legacy and remembrance. World War I left a lasting impact on societies worldwide. The war's devastation and the senseless loss of life prompted efforts to commemorate and remember the fallen. Memorials, such as the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and annual remembrance ceremonies like Armistice Day, later renamed Remembrance Day, serve as reminders of the sacrifices made during the war. These additional details provide a broader understanding of the various aspects and consequences of World War I. Certainly, here are some more details about World War I. War poetry. World War I produced a significant body of war poetry that captured the experiences and emotions of soldiers on the front lines. Poets like Wilfred Owen, Siegfried Sassoon, and Rupert Brooke wrote powerful and often haunting verses that depicted the horrors of war and its impact on the human psyche. War economies. The war necessitated the mobilization of economies to support the massive military efforts. Governments implemented various measures to control resources, allocate production, and manage supply chains. Rationing systems were introduced, and women played a crucial role in industries previously dominated by men. African and Asian involvement. World War I involved countries from around the globe. Colonies and dominions of European powers were drawn into the conflict. Soldiers from Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean fought alongside their European counterparts. The war had profound effects on these regions, both in terms of casualties and in fostering nationalist movements. Post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD). World War I brought attention to the psychological trauma suffered by soldiers. Many soldiers experienced shell shock, a term used at the time to describe a range of symptoms including anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. The war's psychological impact highlighted the need for mental health support for veterans. Women's suffrage. World War I contributed to the advancement of women's rights. The war created opportunities for women to step into traditionally male-dominated roles, such as working in factories, offices, and healthcare. These experiences played a significant role in the suffrage movements and eventually led to the expansion of women's rights in several countries. Espionage and intelligence. World War I saw an increase in espionage and intelligence activities. Both sides engaged in espionage operations, code-breaking, and propaganda campaigns. The most famous example is the British decryption unit known as Room 40, which intercepted and decoded German communications. War crimes and genocide. World War I witnessed numerous war crimes and acts of genocide. The Armenian genocide, perpetrated by the Ottoman Empire, resulted in the deaths of an estimated 1.5 million Armenians. The war also saw the use of chemical weapons, including mustard gas and chlorine gas, leading to widespread suffering and casualties. Cultural and artistic movements. The war had a profound impact on cultural and artistic movements of the time. The disillusionment and trauma of the war influenced artistic expressions, leading to movements like Dadaism and Surrealism. Artists, writers, and intellectuals questioned established norms and conventions, seeking new forms of creative expression. League of Nations. The aftermath of World War I led to the establishment of the League of Nations, an international organization aimed at maintaining peace and resolving conflicts. Although it faced challenges and ultimately failed to prevent the outbreak of World War II, the League laid the groundwork for the establishment of the United Nations. Technology and innovations. World War I served as a catalyst for technological advancements. Besides weapons, advancements in communications, aviation, and transportation emerged from the demands of the war. These innovations would have far-reaching effects beyond the military sphere and contribute to societal progress in the post-war years. These additional details highlight various aspects of World War I, including its cultural, social, and technological impacts. The war had a profound influence on multiple aspects of society, leaving a lasting legacy that continues to be studied and remembered today. Certainly, here are some more details about World War I. War of movement. In the early stages of the war, there were instances of rapid movement and large-scale offensives. However, with the advent of trench warfare, the war settled into a stalemate characterized by static front lines and limited territorial gains. The Christmas Truce. In 1914, during the first Christmas of the war, there were spontaneous unofficial ceasefires along the Western Front. Soldiers from both sides ventured into no man's land, exchanged greetings, and even played soccer together. The Christmas truce remains a remarkable symbol of humanity amid the harsh realities of war. War finance and debt. World War I put an enormous financial strain on participating countries. Governments resorted to borrowing heavily and increasing taxation to fund the war efforts. This led to a significant increase in national debts and post-war economic challenges. Influenza pandemic. In 1918, a global influenza pandemic, known as the Spanish flu, emerged and spread rapidly, infecting millions of people worldwide. The close quarters and unsanitary conditions in the trenches contributed to its spread among soldiers. The pandemic claimed the lives of an estimated 50 million people, far surpassing the war's casualties.
Role of colonies. World War I involved the participation of colonies and dominions of various European powers. Soldiers from countries such as India, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and African colonies fought alongside their respective imperial powers. The war experience contributed to the growth of nationalist movements in these colonies. War reparations. The Treaty of Versailles imposed heavy reparations on Germany and its allies as a means of punishment and compensation for the damages caused during the war. These reparations placed a significant economic burden on Germany and fueled resentment, contributing to political unrest in the interwar period. Impact on science and medicine. World War I spurred advancements in science and medicine. Medical professionals developed new techniques in trauma surgery, prosthetics, and rehabilitation to address the specific injuries caused by modern warfare. The war also led to advances in fields such as radiology, plastic surgery, and psychiatry. Impact on maps and borders. The war resulted in significant territorial changes and redrawing of maps. The dissolution of empires, such as the Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires. led to the creation of new countries and the realignment of borders in Europe and the Middle East. Conscientious objectors. World War I saw a notable presence of conscientious objectors, individuals who refused to participate in the war based on moral, religious, or political grounds. Many faced social ostracization, imprisonment, or alternative forms of service. The lasting impact. World War I had a profound and lasting impact on the 20th century. It shattered the illusion of war as a romantic and noble endeavor, marked the decline of European dominance, and set the stage for geopolitical shifts and conflicts that would shape the world in the decades to come. These additional details offer a deeper understanding of specific aspects and consequences of World War I, showcasing its wide-ranging impact on various aspects of society, politics, and culture.